Hi, this is Astro Girish here, and thank you for tuning into my channel. As I've been doing a series on retrograde planet, today I would be doing on the retrograde effects on Mercury. Okay, for those who are looking at this video for the first time, I would request them to go through the other videos on retrograde planet. I've done one specific video on what is retrograde planet and what is the impact of a retrograde planet. More than the technicalities, interpretation is what I have emphasized. So I would request you to go through those videos. I have put those videos in the description, and then you will understand the background as to what am I talking here. So today, as I said, I'll be talking about Mercury, retrograde Mercury. First, let us understand what does Mercury stands for, and then I will take you through the effects of retrograde motion. See, Mercury in itself stands for communication. It's a planet for communication. It's a planet for intelligence, right? It is a planet for mathematics. It is a planet for accounting. Okay. Some people consider it also for information technology, but I don't give Mercury alone that benefit of doubt, But yeah, for some people who say Mercury stands for IT, fair enough. For you, we can also take Mercury for information technology. Though, as per my study, what I have learned is Mercury should get connected with Venus or vice versa. Only then, the person shows interest in information technology. Other than this, Mercury also stands for dualism. Anything where you have dual concept coming into picture, Mercury should have a role to play, right? Mercury also is a planet for travel, It's a quick planet, so it's also a planet for travel. So, so these are some of the areas where Mercury governs. From a medical point of view, it also governs emotions. Not completely, but yes, it does play a role. It plays a catalyst role when it comes to emotions, right? Also, Mercury plays a role, when I say Mercury plays a role in terms of, some dual organs in your body. From a medical point of view, medical astrology point of view, it stands for lungs. It stands for your dual organs such as, intestines. Of course, intestine is not just dual, but it is a multiple organ. So, Mercury also stands for, anything which stands for multiplication. So, that is how it is governed. Now, what happens is, when Mercury is retrograde, you will have a problem in these areas. Alright, so that is one reason why we say that Mercury should be direct in the natal chart. See, never go with the concept of exaltation and debilitation. Okay, especially those who have learned astrology under me, they know it very well. Exaltation and debilitation doesn't play a key role at all, including combustion. Okay, the exact effect of a planet is determined by its position and the zodiac sign. For example, how does Mercury become strong? See, Mercury becomes strong when it gets conjoined with certain planets. For example, Mars. Mars plus Mercury means analytical brain. How many astrologers talk about this? Or how many astrologers are even aware of it? I had a conversation with somebody who's also a very well-known YouTuber. He came for a lecture and he was asking us, how exalted Mercury, debilitated Mercury, these effects, that effect. I said, sir, what are we talking? Exaltation and debilitation doesn't play a role at all in your Kundali. It plays a role, but there is a different way of analyzing it. The true strength of certain planets depends purely on the placement. That's the reason I connect these planets with houses. That's a very important concept. Okay, so I had to slightly digress, but I'll come back to the point now. So when I say when Mercury is retrograde in a natal chart, the areas that we covered, such as your intelligence, your communication skill, any part of your dual organ in the body, from a medical astrology point of view, can have defects, right? So, now let us see what happens when retrograde Mercury gets connected with each of these 12 houses. What could be the impact, what could be the effects. The first effect is retrograde Mercury connecting with the ascendant. or with the natal chart. That is the first house, right? So, see, whenever Mercury gets connected with the first house, the person will be too childish. Typical bacha behavior, and to some extent lacks maturity. I won't say he's immature or she's immature, but would lack maturity, like a child, typical child. A child will be, bubbly and try to be like, will always try to be in a happy mood. Okay, so retrograde Mercury connecting with the first house will always make the person to have a happy mood, right? Again, if you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the first house, you're likely to be more emotional. You're likely to be too expressive, okay, especially when it comes to your emotions. So people, they'll just open up to other people, anyone coming out to them, right? Again, as I said, Mercury stands for intelligence. A retrograde Mercury getting connected with the first house, your intelligence level could be, I won't say below standard, but it could be questioned, or it may not be at par to somebody who is, who's considered to be intelligent, right? So, these are some of the effects where a retrograde Mercury gets connected with the first house, and the following would be the effects. Now, let's see what happens when a retrograde Mercury gets connected with the second house. See, second house is the house for communication, especially oral communication. And whenever Mercury gets connected with the second house, assuming if it is in a direct motion, the person will be very eloquent in his language, very diplomatic, very impressive. I've seen some of the best diplomats in the world having, strong Mercury connection with the second house. So they have the depth in the language, depth in the knowledge what they speak, and they are very articulate and eloquent in presenting those ideas. Some of the best marketeers are based out of, having a Mercury connection with the second house. So again, if you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the second house, your ability to converse may not be up to the mark. I won't say it will be below standard. It will still continue to give its effects, but you will need some fine tuning, some extra effort in presenting your language. As again, your facial expression could also be sometimes weird, because second house also stands for, your facial expression. Second house also stands for facial expressions. Sometimes, the choice of your attire is also not very impressive, because second house also stands for attire, and Mercury is a young planet. So, sometimes, you might be old, or you would have aged over a period of time, but you would still feel that, I'm a bacha from my heart. So, my choice of attire would still be as if I'm at the college, or a cool kind of an attire. So, sometimes it may not be at par to the industrial expectations. Okay, so it's not a bad quality. It's not a shortcoming. But yes, it's something that you need to improvise upon, right? So this is what happens when you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the second house. Also, a Mercury connecting with the second house means dual source of income. It's actually a very good placement for Mercury. So what happens is, when you have a retrograde Mercury connecting with the second house, you will still earn well. But yes, your expenditure also could be impulsive. Suddenly you will spend on something, without giving a second thought. Okay, and probably later you might regret. But I have seen impulsive behavior when you have a Mercury getting connected with the second house with regard to money, right? Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Mercury gets connected with the third house. See, third house and retrograde Mercury means nerves in your body. See, Mercury also stands for nerves. Third house from the ascendant stands for nervous system. So when you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the third house, I have seen people having some nerve related problems. Varicose vein is one example. Extreme cases, emotional drawbacks, right? Cases of nervous depression, nervous breakdown, all these things happens when you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the third house. Of course, other planetary combination will also come into picture, but this becomes a basic ingredient to have some kind of a suffering. Some people also have problems with regard to their pulmonology related activities. Breathing could be a problem. Asthma is one area where they suffer. So these are some of the problems when you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the third house, and they hate to travel. Though Mercury is actually a very good planet for travel, a retrograde Mercury connecting with the third house, I have seen people have an aversion towards travel, because they have a psychological fear. Something will go wrong, when I travel. some negativity should happen, and it happens. It's not that it's just an imagination or a figment that they are dealing with. They do have this problem. There is some problem or the other that takes place while traveling. So they usually they tend to be little averse when it comes to travel, right? Now let's see what happens when you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the fourth house, right? Here what happens is, see, Mercury and the fourth house, and assuming if even Mars is getting connected, the person will have interest to buy, apartments, constructed property, okay, especially flat system, what we say, 2 BHK, 1 BHK, so on and so forth. So, and normally people buy more than one, okay, so they may have a second home. But here what happens is, again, when you have a retrograde Mercury, while getting the second property, there are issues that I've seen. Maybe your income could not be supportive, your bank may not be supportive, your financer may not be supportive. So there is a delay factor in that. It is not denied, but there is a delay factor in that, right? Most importantly, they are highly emotional. Highly emotional. See, fourth house is also the house for thinking faculty. Your thought process is not just taken care by from your brain, but also your subconscious mind also plays a role. So fourth house dominates that, right? So I've seen people having a very emotional state of mind when they have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the fourth house. Again, anything in the northern direction is a problematic area for them, because Mercury stands for north, right? So a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the fourth house, these are the problems. But yes, there is one good thing is that people they show a strong tendency to or a likingness towards their mother, right? So they become too emotional towards their mother, and of course it is vice versa. Even the mother likes the child very much. So only thing, this becomes a little excessive. That's it, right? Now let's see what happens when Mercury gets connected with the fifth house. See, fifth house and Mercury is also a very good combination. Like, see, fourth house, fifth house, ninth house, 10th house, 11th house, connection with Mercury is extremely good. I'm just bringing out these points, so in case if I miss some of these points, you can probably inquire the same in the drop box or in the comment box, and I'll revert to that, right? So what happens when Mercury gets connected with the fifth house? Your fifth house stands for creativity, enjoyment, entertainment. You have too much of interest in these areas, again, because Mercury is a kid, it's a child, it's a bacha, so it will have that tendencies to enjoy these areas, okay. Also, if you have a fifth house connection with Mercury, the person will be witty. When I say witty, they are extremely good in cracking jokes. So all these comedians who you see, out in the television, or any of these standing comedians who come on YouTube and other channels, they all have a strong connection of Mercury with the fifth house. All right. So they have this tendency to be very creative. They will come up with the best of jokes to at the spurt of the moment they can crack a joke. Okay. So again, please do not go for exaltation, debilitation. Mercury, or for that matter any planet, there is no exaltation, debilitation. There is a different way to analyze it. So Mercury connecting with the fifth house is very good. Only thing, if a retrograde Mercury gets connected with the fifth house, they will have this impact. They will still crack jokes, but वो मजा नहीं रहेगा. You may not have that flavor that you can bring sometimes. Okay, sometimes you see people doing PJs. They are good at cracking jokes, but sometimes you यार मजा नहीं आया आज के दिन. You cracked a particular joke, but I didn't enjoy it, right? So these are shortcomings that you will see when you have a Mercury connection with the fifth house. Some people say that Mercury connecting fifth house means there could be twin children born. Sorry, it is not at all correct. I'll be doing separate videos on Kundali Vishleshan, that time we can see. Otherwise, I teach twin children case studies in my classes. Mercury has got no role to play. It can be a factor to aid the process, but it is not the ultimate planet alone to give a twins childbirth. So please do not have this misconception that Mercury with the fifth house means dual children. No. Okay, Mercury is a eunuch. It is Napunsak, if I say in Hindi. So Napunsak planet cannot give you any result for childbirth. You say a child, it has to be a boy or a girl, right? So either a male planet has to dominate or a female planet has to dominate. So please do not go with this theory that Mercury connecting with fifth house, you can have twins children. It doesn't happen so, right? Now comes sixth house along with Mercury. See, as it is, sixth house is a rogue sthan, it's a house of ailments, disease. Okay, rogue in Hindi means some kind of an ailment. So if you have if you have any planet connecting with the sixth house, it can have problems with regard to your health. Okay, of course, it is also the house for competition, no doubt about that. But like every coin has got two sides. The other side of the coin is it will have some health ailments. Now, when a Mercury gets connected with the sixth house, your nervous system will have a problem, or rather likely to have a problem. But if you have a retrograde Mercury connecting with the sixth house, 100% there is a possibility of having some nerve related drawbacks. Like similarly, when you have a connection with the third house, similarly with the sixth house, yes, you are likely to have, because if sixth house Mercury is getting connected, by some way it will also get connected with the third house. Okay, how to see the connections? Of course, you have to come to my classes to teach. I can't teach everything in one video. But invariably, I've seen if a retrograde planet getting connected with the sixth house, especially Mercury, it will also have connection with the third house, because third house plus Mercury means nervous system. So you are likely to have health problems. Some positives is that you can have more than one source of income again in this case, because sixth house means services, right? So many freelancers do have Mercury connection with the sixth house. If it is with retrograde Mercury, then you have problems in managing your time. That's the only problem that I've seen. Though still they have two sources of income or two activities that they engage with, right? So this is what happens when you have a retrograde Mercury connecting with the sixth house. Now let's see what happens a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the seventh house. See, seventh house is partner, right? It is partner, it is audience like you for me. It is anybody who's sitting opponent to you. Okay, so there is always a dualism if Mercury gets connected with the seventh house. Invariably, I have seen these people having more than one relationship. If it is retrograde Mercury, multiple relationships, and most of these relationships will not be stable, right? Like, if you have a retrograde Mercury in the ascendant, you tend to be emotional. If you have a retrograde Mercury connecting with the seventh house, your partners tend to be emotional, right? So I've mostly seen that Mercury connecting with the seventh house, relationship is always in strain, and it creates problems for most of the people. Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Mercury gets connected with the eighth house. Here, it is again a worst placement, like we saw on other planets, like for Mars, Saturn. Retrograde Mercury getting connected with the eighth house means again problem. Most problems are nervous system disorder. I've also seen people, lack of comprehension could be a problem. When I say comprehension, you talk to them something, it will not get into their head. See, eighth house is anything which is hidden, right? So when you have anything which is hidden and you try to break your head on somebody, you try to educate somebody, the person will never absorb. Okay, I have also seen people having a deficiency in hearing capability. They have a tendency, what are you saying? Just repeat. Not that they have a deaf ears. They have a problem in absorbing. Their brain cannot work at that frequency, at the length and breadth what you would be speaking to them. So eighth house Mercury any which ways is not great. Retrograde Mercury is even bad, right? Also, these people will have problems in their education. See, Mercury is a planet for intelligence, right? Your intelligence also plays an important role in absorbing knowledge. If you have a poor Mercury, the person will not be great. See, I'm not going with academics. First aa gaya, second aa gaya. No. That's not the actual benchmark of rating somebody. When I say intelligence, your general capability to understand a subject. People will have shortcomings if they have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the eighth house. Now let's see what happens when a retrograde Mercury gets connected with the ninth house. See, it's a good placement. Mercury getting connected with fourth house, fifth house, ninth house, 10th house, 11th house. Very good placement. Problem is, being retrograde, all the qualities that you need to get from the ninth house, like ninth house stands for your father, your paternal relationship, your higher intelligence, your capability to study for higher higher level, like not PhD level but post graduation level. So there would be some shortcoming out here, and I've also seen these people having, committing too much of silly mistakes. What we used to normally, comment when we were in school, so teachers used to come and say, oh, you do too much of silly mistakes. What is that? It is largely because when you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the ninth house. Travel, yes, they love, but they have problems again, because again ninth house stands for long distance travel, and a retrograde Mercury will have problems, right? Especially if they have a connecting flights to take, either the flight will get delayed, they will not be at fault. All the external forces will create problems for them, right? So these are some of the problems when you have Mercury, retrograde Mercury getting connected with the ninth house. Now let's see what happens when retrograde Mercury gets connected with the 10th house. Again, excellent placement, as I said before. Okay, people do very well in their career. In fact, they have dual source of income, right? There are challenges because of a retrograde motion. So what happens is sometimes they may find it difficult to manage more than 2 or 3 jobs. Okay. They could be claimed to be a multitasker, but they would fail at the time to deliver, right? So these are some fine-tuning areas that needs to be taken into account. Otherwise, placement of Mercury in the 10th house is very good. Again, placement of Mercury in the 11th house is also very good, right? So whenever Mercury gets connected, as it is, I have mentioned it in the past, any planet getting connected with the 11th house is very good. Only thing, if it is retrograde, there is a slight delay in achievement, right? Otherwise, in general, retrograde Mercury getting connected with the 11th house is also good. Sometimes I have seen the elder sibling could be a bit, childish. So if you are a younger sibling, you have an elder sibling, the elder sibling could be childish, but you would not be. Why? Because again, 11th house stands for siblings, older siblings, right? And Mercury is a young planet, so they may lack a little bit of maturity, but you will still rule the roost, right? Being a younger one, you will still dominate it very well, right? So these are some good qualities. What happens when retrograde Mercury gets connected with the 11th house? The last part, that is retrograde Mercury getting connected with the 12th house. See, 12th house, 8th house is always a horrible placement, any planet for that matter. Most cases I have seen Mercury getting connected with the 12th house, first thing, hearing problems. Like you have in the 8th house, 12th house also you will have hearing problems. If you have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the 12th house, deficiency in hearing, there would be some problems with your hearing organ. Okay, I've seen people even damaging their ears at times, for whatever reason that happens. Okay, poor ability to comprehend. 12th house Mercury means your intelligence is as good as 0. It is even below 0 sometimes. Very unfortunate. Okay, so these are some shortcomings that you have in Mercury getting connected with the 12th house. The good thing is, foreign travel can take quite, it will be very easy for you to take up a foreign travel. Though there would be obstacles, but still I have seen if they have a retrograde Mercury getting connected with the 12th house, I normally encourage people to go for higher studies where foreign travel is involved. So when you keep traveling, at least the Mercury gets energized in some way or the other, right? So that is where it stands when it gets connected with the 12th house. So these, see, when I say connection, all the connections right from the first house to the 12th house, you have to see not just the placement. Okay, there are ways to see how planets get connected with each of these houses. Again, I will not be able to cover the entire point in this video alone, because it becomes too, any which ways it gets elongated. Okay, and again, students who are learning astrology under me, for them this becomes easy to understand how to check these planets get connected with these houses. Simple. See, you have 12 houses and you have only 9 planets. So it doesn't mean that placement alone will decide whether the planet is getting connected with the respective houses, right? Max to max, each of these planets can connect is 9th house if you take only the placement rule. But there is something called connection. That's why in most of my videos I talk about connection and not just placement. Okay, so please understand the difference. And of course, this is more of a general video. It's not that I'm covering all the points here, but yes, I wanted to bring some of these points because not many people have spoken about the true effects of a retrograde planet, right? So I hope these videos are interesting to you, and you're able to learn more about all these planets. That's all for the day when it comes to retrograde Mercury, and I would request the audience to kindly subscribe and like the channel. I'm getting good feedbacks, but that's again in the Facebook, so I would request the audience to drop some of their good comments on the description below, on the link below, and even if there's a feedback that you want to give it to me, in case if you feel there is a feedback that I need to be shared, please do that, right? Of course, for those who would like to learn astrology under me, as I keep saying, you can get in touch with me. Just WhatsApp me with your details. I'll revert it to you back, and then we can take it ahead from there. Also, for those who want to take consultation, please drop a message to me. Please drop a WhatsApp message to me, and then we can take it ahead from there. So that's all for the day, and I would like to sign off for the time being. Look forward for more videos in the coming days. Thank you.